Good day, students. Though the topic for the day is obesity, I would consider it to be a lean topic for us. In the sense, not very serious, but yet there is a catch in this. It would be how much we are able to retrieve, organize ourselves, correlate with other topics, and learn. And there is a small trick in this trade. I always tell my students, always try to read an undergraduate topic along with a postgraduate topic. If you do not answer a postgraduate question, you are exempted. I don't think that will be the case if we do not answer any undergraduate questions. We shall take the plunge and see how things move. Welcome. Trap for rats. The topic for the day is pathology of obesity. The word obesity is seen in many a situation, and starting from Robbins to Ackerman, recent advances to monograms, we have got sources of reference. But the problem is we will have to maintain our limit and stick to the time. That's why I mentioned it is a university question by itself, but then there is many an option in it, as we shall be seeing. The authors have done a splendid work, but these words of warning were rendered by them. And we shall go to the topic straight. Well begun is half done. Usually I give a panel of subheadings before I start any topic. But in this, you find that there is a very elongated list. And all these are not my own. They are all components of the article that has been given. So let us see how much of it we shall be able to understand, retrieve, and reproduce. Of course, it is a growing emergency. And they say that the body mass index, 40 and 50 categories are increasing by 50% and 75% today. And obviously, there will be a great deal of risk that can be associated with this. The fatal conditions, however, that we shall remember will be obstructive sleep apnea, obesity, hypoventilation syndrome, obesity, cardiomyopathy, and venous thromboembolic disease. These are all certain things that have been newly added to the list, and we shall not miss them in our answers. Basics again. The adipose tissue is just not an insulator, as is usually considered. It is a source for secreting adipokines, as well as the other inflammatory cytokines that can lead to cancer or even atherosclerosis. These are well known, but please have them in mind. And the common measurements that we follow will be the body mass index and the waist hip ratio. This is a simple theme wherein you find that the regulation of fat is located in the hypothalamus. As the fat is taken along with the food, you find that the Fundy glands help in the absorption, and they are taken via the portal vein to the hepatocytes. So there is an accumulation. Obviously, in your first chapter on fatty liver, it would have been mentioned. Excessive eating can be a source of fatty liver, so also starvation. And here what happens is, once the fat accumulates within the adipocytes, there is a signal that goes on to the hypothalamus, which regulates this further absorption. And the liver per se is activated for its metabolism. What we should be remembering will be the systemic as well as the portal leptin. This will be the regulating substance for fat absorption, and the gene is located in the hypothalamus. There is a state called the leptin resistant state. As per the previous picture, you find that there are the fat cells, and then there is a signal that goes to the hypothalamus, from where you get the signals which prevent further absorption of fat. But when there is going to be a loss of this regulatory signal, you find that there is an excess of food intake, and there is also a decreased utility of the energy, which leads to obesity. Also, you find that there can be an overactivity of nitrous oxide, which leads to ventricular hypertrophy. And this is the genetic makeup of it. So these two diagrams we shall have in mind, which will be easy. Always in the exam, try to have a flow diagram or a line diagram, which will divert the attention of the examiners from the contents that we write. System-wise, the respiratory system is one that has been included. And in this, as I mentioned earlier, there is a syndrome called the sudden death in obese. The patient can be having multiple problems, but the sudden death can be because of arrhythmias, prolonged QT interval, or cardiac hypertrophy and dilatation. But these are classically absent in a case of obesity. Also, the sudden unexpected death in epilepsy patients and sudden unexpected death in alcohol misuse. These all will have to be excluded when we have to certify that a patient has died because of obesity and its complications. And what is the role of the pathologist here in obesity? We are not clinicians. We are not going to treat. We are not going to do a bariatric surgery. But then we are supposed to certify as to what exactly the cause of death is, and hence these will have to be excluded to mention what exact role obesity has played in the death of the patient. There is something called as obstructive sleep apnea, OSA. There will be recurrent episodes of apnea during sleep. The patient awakens and there is a restoration to patency. He feels as though something is suffocating him. This can be because of neck obesity. And there can also be a snoring habit that is associated with it. All these can be measured by means of polysomnography. What is polysomnography? We shall be seeing. And the treatment for it will be continuous positive airway pressure. This has to be maintained. Otherwise, you find that the patient can go in for suffocation and die. And they say that smoking also has got a role in this condition. The death itself can be because of posture, or it can be pulmonary hypertension or core pulmonary. And any of these findings will have to be histologically or toxicologically assessed. And finally, a certificate be given for death. This is your polysomnography. It assesses various components as mentioned over here: EEG, ECG, blood pressure, then the abdominal and the chest, the flow of air, etc., as well as the oxygen saturation. All these are measured, and it is useful in assessing a sleep apnea. Normally, you find that there is a hypoventilation, and there is a hypercapnia as well as a hypoxemia. Carbon dioxide is increased and oxygen is decreased, as a result of which the patient can go in for a core pulmonary. Also, as we had mentioned earlier, there is a resistance to leptin, and the patient can go in for a ventricular arrhythmia. The obesity hypoventilation syndrome is also called the Pickwickian syndrome. It is a famous character in Charles Dickens' novel. So this is a flow diagram again that we should be mentioning. Obesity is over here. There is a resistance to leptin, because of which there is a deprivation of the central ventilation. there is also impairment of the breathing mechanics or respiratory mechanics. There will be increased shallow respiration. Also, the sleep is also disturbed, as a result of which you get what is called a sleep apnea and hyperventilation. All this can lead to an increase in the carbon dioxide. And it is a chronic daytime hypercapnia that can lead to the Pickwickian syndrome. So who is this Mr. Pickwick? There is a history of obstructive hyperventilation syndrome. There can be sudden death or the cor pulmonale or pulmonary hypertension, which can lead to right ventricular hypertrophy. And this is the famous character of the Pickwick in Charles Dickens. So you find that there's an obese individual who has got obesity even around the neck. It has got a cushioning effect. You can remember the Cushing's disease as well. And it is one character, supposed to be a very happy character, but then comes the saying, the pursuit of happiness is driving me to despair. A beautiful novel, maybe a lot of meaning of life is implicated in it. And as far as the problem of a pathologist is concerned, and I told you people, the role of a pathologist will be in autopsy. Ultimately, you are the certifying authority. And when you certify, you'll have to mention what is the cause for death is. Simply, we cannot be writing cardiac failure and respiratory failure. Obese individual on alcohol and sedatives or in a supine position developing a left ventricular or biventricular failure. This can be a clinical scenario. In such a case, what is the cause of death? The individual is obese, he is on alcohol, lying on a supine position, and he develops a biventricular failure. So all these can be there. It can be alveolar hypoxia, it can be pulmonary hypertension leading to cor pulmonale, left ventricular failure, cardiac arrhythmias, myocardial infarctions. All these can be cause of death. And incidentally, there is another one that has to be considered. That will be accidents when driving a car or at work. So you find that there is a plethora of possibilities, and the pathologist cannot give a final diagnosis that very easily. We go to the heart next. So obviously it is an autopsy specimen. It is a slice through the ventricles. It is retrieved from the main article itself from the recent advances. You people can go through it if required. The death is due to obesity, hyperventilation syndrome. The patient has developed a cor pulmonale, and it has occurred in a 71-year-old male who was found to be deceased or dead. The body mass we shall next move to the heart. One difference between the heart and the lung is here most of the things are physical. In the sense I can see, I can weigh, I can measure, which is not probable in the lung. Most of the changes are physiological. Try following me. What are we people seeing in this particular picture? This is the right ventricle, interventricular septum, the left ventricle. What are you people observing? It is a slice made through the mid ventricles. Through and through they have made a slice of it. So obviously it is an autopsy specimen. The death has been because of hyperventilation. Patient has gone in for cor pulmonale, he has died. The other details are given over here. The heart is also quite heavy, weighing 768 grams. There is a biventricular hypertrophy. Look at this one, the right ventricle as well as the interventricular septum. They are all thickened more or less uniformly, which we may call a concentric hypertrophy. The left ventricle, on the contrary, it appears thickened in some areas, thinned out in some areas. So, and there is also a distension. It is irregular. This is one thing that we notice. In the heart, we are supposed to look for, when the patient is alive, an increase in the blood volume, increase in the cardiac output, any ventricular dilatation by CT scan and so on. left ventricular and right ventricular hypertrophies, dysfunction and congestive cardiac failure. All these records will have to be taken into consideration. And this is a very good flow diagram which shall be explained subsequently. So you find that some criteria for diagnosing the heart in obesity. There is an increase in the heart weight, either a left ventricular or a biventricular hypertrophy. Microscopically, there can be interstitial fibrosis and evidence of arrhythmias. And also, there has to be some exclusions. Coronary artery disease is not included in this, and myocardial infarction is not included. If these two are there, then the diagnosis is in their favor. But without these two conditions, if the patient dies and he is obese, there is a chance of obesity being the cause of death. This is again a very simple flow diagram. Obesity, it can lead to hemodynamic factors. It can be either an afterload and a blood pressure. Either of them can be increased. This will lead to a concentric hypertrophy of the left ventricle. After all, whenever there is an increase in the blood pressure, it is Archimedes' principle. It is transmitted equally to all parts of the heart, as a result of which you find there is a pressure throughout, there is a concentric hypertrophy, including the interventricular septum. On the contrary, if there is a preload and a blood volume, which can happen in a case of an incompetence and so on, there is an eccentric hypertrophy that can be there. Compare both the pictures, you find that there is a dilatation as well. So all this can be the changes. There can be a concentric hypertrophy, eccentric hypertrophy. And what are the non-hemodynamic factors? It can be because of mitochondrial dysfunction, hyperglycemia and insulin resistance, inflammation. I showed you some mediators which can be promoted, and lipotoxicity. These things we people should write as postgraduates. These are important. Hemodynamic factors, non-hemodynamic factors. And collectively all can lead to a congestive cardiac failure and death. So this in short is a pathogenesis of obesity in the heart. So these are the things. Apart from that, in autopsy, we can look for fat infiltration. This is the flow diagram, superb one. Always there will be a single picture that will carry the message, and this is it. So there are multiple factors which are given here. I would like to pick up some like blood pressure, we know, insulin, angiotensin, fat deposition, etc. And all of this can progress to atherosclerotic lesions, which can lead to either formation of a plaque, damage to the endothelium, and formation of a thrombus. So this is atherosclerosis by itself. And what will happen? The patient can end up in a stroke or a sudden cardiac death. Also, you find that there can be some changes because of the hemodynamism. There can be a left ventricular hypertrophy, or the patient can go in for a congestive cardiac failure. And whenever there is a hypertrophy, there is an increased oxygen consumption, which leads to an ischemia, again arrhythmias, angina, which can lead to sudden cardiac death or a myocardial infarction. And also it affects the prognostic factor. So there is a hypertrophy, there is a greater chance of myocardial infarction, or if there is no, later on the patient can go in for a cardiac failure also. These are the set of cardiac complications which you people should mention. In short, it can be atherosclerosis, it can be myocardial damage and myocardial infarction, it can be cardiac failure. It can be physical, it can be functional. And these are all the causes of death: stroke, sudden cardiac death, myocardial infarction, cardiac failure. Coming to the cardiovascular system again, the coronary artery disease. Obviously, I am finding there's a plaque-like thing that is obstructing. The lumen is still quite large, patency is maintained. But then atherosclerosis by itself does not cause. There can be the adipokinins which are related, released, adiponectin, and it can be resistant to insulin and inflammation. So when there is going to be a resistance to insulin, there can be the development of the diabetes and further complications of atherosclerosis. One paradox here is always they mention that it is the body weight to ratio. And what happens in this particular case is when there is going to be an excess of body weight when compared to the heart, it confers a lower risk. That is why it is called a paradox. Otherwise, in a normal individual, when the heart weight is going to be more, there is a greater risk. I would advise you people to kindly go to RATS, my class for undergraduates on atherosclerosis, which will help you for a rapid reckoning and revision. It is one of the first classes in RATS. What are the other changes that we can see in autopsy? In this one, nobody needs to mention. The heart is large and flabby. There is a dilatation that I could see. There are a few conditions where you can get a large flabby heart. One is diphtheria with a carnitine cofactor that could be secreted. That can be a cause for a fatty liver and sudden death. But here, what we see is a heart that is 800 to 900 grams, hypertrophy of both the ventricles, interstitial fibrosis. There is an accumulation of fat which is insinuating between the muscles, and later on the patient can go in for a coronary artery disease or a myocardial infarction or a myocarditis. And arrhythmias also can predispose to death. So these are all some changes that we people should look for. So look at this heart, it's a beautiful specimen. Web path obviously, and you find that the heart is large, yellowish, glistening, flabby. And this appears to be a normal myocardium. Compared with this, there is a lot of yellowish material that is going to insinuate within the myocardium. And the pathogenesis here is mentioned. Some of them is anybody's guess. What will happen because of the appetite, excess fat, and oxidative stress. But what is important for us from the examination point of view will be the release of the cytokines, formation of hyperlipidemia, and then there can be release of leptin again, anorexia. So these are the things that are there, but this is not regulated, as a result of which you find that there will be a loss of this reduction in the lipogenesis, more accumulation leading to obesity. In the pancreas, there can be an insulin resistance, therefore it can predispose to obesity. Please know these things, it can form part of your answer. The next organ obviously is the liver. In the liver, there are two types of changes, and NASH, all of you know, it is an essay question for you. Non-alcoholic steatohepatitis. There is an alcoholic steatohepatitis, which we know one of the first chapters in Robbins, and then there is a NASH also. Along with it, there can be fibrosis, cirrhosis, hepatocellular carcinoma. Histologically, there is one factor which is distinguishing the NASH from the alcoholic liver disease, and that is an accumulation of the neutrophils. Mallory bodies can be seen, zonal fibrosis is again present. And what they say is all this can be again because of insulin resistance, iron accumulation, oxidative stress. There are a lot of things given in the list, but I'm enumerating only three. Please by heart this: insulin resistance, iron accumulation, oxidative stress. One of the diagrams, first chapters, I will not go into it at all. But then there is another one, the first hit and the second hit hypothesis. For our NASH, there is an increased amount of lipolysis, there is an increase in the free fatty acids, there is a macrosteatosis, and the formation of NASH. And also you find that there can be the release of the various mediators which can lead to NASH. This is the second hit and this is the first hit. This line diagram can be drawn. The same thing is more or less shown over here. So you find in hepatic steatosis, there can be an oxidative stress. And this leads to obesity, which can lead to endoplasmic reticulum stress, which impairs the glycosylation pathway. These can result in inflammation. That is what I said. Neutrophils will be present in a case of NASH. Ballooning of the hepatocytes, necrosis, etc. can be there. There can be hepatocyte death. This particular diagram, I would like you people to kindly make use of even in your answer for NASH. So there is obesity at one end, diabetes on another, both of which lead to a fatty liver. So there is a first hit, second hit, and finally the third hit is the hepatocyte death. And look at the heart changes over here. This actually should have come earlier. I'm finding between the myocardial fibers, there is an insinuation of the fat, the seen in the ventricle. And there is no evidence of arrhythmia, etc. So let us just recollect before I proceed further. We had seen the lung, we had seen the blood vessel, the coronary artery, we had seen the heart, and now the liver, and finally we are moving on to the kidney. And in the kidney, what happens is all this can predispose to renal disease. High body mass index can lead to a chronic kidney disease. There can be a hypertension, there can be diabetes, which are complicating it. What are the changes we see in the kidney? The glomerulomegaly. Look at the glomerulus, it is large. Apart from that, there is not much of the abnormality. There can be narrowing of the Bowman space. The kidney itself can be larger. There is an increase in the renal mass. And obviously, later on, there can be a decrease in the renal function. This can be one of the first changes that can be seen in the kidney. And here, there is a hyalinosis. Compared with the previous picture, I'm able to see in this one, there are numerous capillaries, whereas in this, there is total hyalinization of the mesangial matrix. Eosinophilic cellular material that is over there. And in some areas, there can be sclerosis. The sclerosis that is being formed over here, a nodular glomerulosclerosis. And when there is a focal segmental sclerosis and a nodular sclerosis, these subsequently are followed up with the tubular pathology. There can be interstitial fibrosis, tubular atrophy, and there can be the oxalate crystals. So this is the tubule within which I'm seeing oxalate crystal. This is what you people are later on going to see in the urine. And they say that sometimes a treatment is given by means of a drug called orlistat, and this treatment for obesity can cause the precipitation of the oxalate crystals. And this is absorbed and excreted in the urinary tubule. Also, I'm finding that there is a lot of fibrosis surrounding the tubule, which is the interstitial fibrosis. The other renal changes, when the patient is live, there will be a massive proteinuria, IgA nephropathy, loss of the renal function, which all predispose to a poor prognosis. And the treatment will have to be renal transplantation. On the converse, it is all because of obesity that we are getting all these complications. The converse, when there is a bariatric surgery, it reduces the proteinuria and stabilizes the functions of the kidney. What are the other systemic complications? So we have seen the liver, we have seen the kidney. What are the other systems which can be affected? One we will have to mention is the metabolic syndrome. He gives it in a few lines, and the WHO has got some criteria for the metabolic syndrome. It has got two major criteria, namely the insulin resistance and impaired GTT or diabetes mellitus. These two should be there, along with two minor criteria. Four have been given: hypertension, triglycerides, obesity, microalbuminemia, any two. So 2 plus 2 will give rise to a diagnosis of metabolic syndrome. And this is again dramatically represented over here. Look at this again, a flow diagram. There is a visceral obesity, there is a dysregulation of the mediators, there is a dyslipidemia leading to a metabolic syndrome. Can be contributed by diabetes mellitus or hypertension as well. And it can result in a cardiovascular disease. A beautiful flow diagram which you people can recollect. And all the others, I put it in the form of a tabular column. So it is a little bit of factual details: metabolic being cancer, infection, and venous thromboembolic disease. And these are all the features of it, and this will be the manifestations. There can be obesity, triglycerides, etc. I would like you people to memorize. Cancer means what are the cancers that are predisposing to it? and what is the manifestation. A little difficult, and then this is also quite good. My memory is so bad. How bad is it? How bad is what? He doesn't even remember what he has said just half a second back. So also will be this. I will follow this. I should not eat to live. Rather, I should live to eat. Bariatric surgery is important. This has been asked as a question and quite simple for us to follow. And it has been designed by NICE, National Institute for Clinical Excellence, in which they have defined more than a body mass index of 40 is supposed to be obesity. And this will be somewhere in the borderline. Along with diabetes mellitus, this also can go in for bariatric surgery. And there are multiple procedures that I mentioned over here: restrictive procedure, vertical sleeve, combined restrictive, and malabsorption procedure. They are inducing malabsorption. And Rowe-en-Y, gastric bypass, small gastric pouch. What are all these things? It is given over here in a diagrammatic form. So there is an adjustable band. So possibly, if required, the food will be going into the stomach, and then there will be a regulation over here, or can be a bypass. You find that there is a bypass that is over here that prevents the accumulation of food over here, and straight away it is going in form. Therefore, much of it is not being absorbed and digested. And there is a vertical sleeve also. A slit is being produced, as a result of which you find that the stomach is made much narrower, and it is a kind of gastrectomy that is being done. Also, there is a diversion or a duodenal switch that can be done. These are all some things. Eat for the body you want and not for the body you have. Probably this for somebody. And bariatric surgery, it is now coming into vogue. Many people are going in for it, and surgeons are also finding it lucrative. But what are the complications? There can be nausea and vomiting, electrolyte imbalance, renal failure, gastrointestinal hemorrhage, aspiration, and ischemic erosions caused by the bag. There can be a leak at the sites of anastomosis, perforation, abscess, gallstones, and small intestine bacterial overgrowth syndrome. In fact, this is supposed to be one of the causes for malabsorption. Malabsorption syndrome itself is a very horrifying question. We shall see that at a later date if time permits. So these are all the list of complications. Please remember: electrolyte imbalance, renal failure, hemorrhage, perforation, and the bypass over here that is being indicated. There are many things, many surgical procedures. You people can go into it. And what are all the investigations that you people should do? One is a microbiological assessment. Find out the stasis, and from that you find that there is a microbiological overgrowth. Second is hydrogen test. You people can mention these two tests as further investigations. The complications are mentioned over here: ulceration, obstruction, herniation, bacterial overgrowth. And what is the final outcome of it? The obesity itself. And as I mentioned earlier, it is the role of the pathologist to decide the cause of death. And National Confidential Inquiry into the Patient Outcome and Death. There is an association for it. And death audit into bariatric deaths. There has been a couple of studies that have been conducted, and they found that the death is common in a patient with, not common actually, but the common cause of death will be gastric rupture, cardiac arrest, anastomotic leak, maybe electrolyte imbalance, sepsis, etc. Pulmonary thromboembolism, hemorrhage, and malnutrition. All these can be causes of death. You can kindly enumerate it in your answers. Food is the most abused anxiety drug, and exercise is the most underutilized antidepressant. I think too many quotes for me. So bariatric surgery decreases the mortality, and meta-analysis shows there is a low mortality actually because of bariatric surgery. So it is not that unavoidable. If people can go in for a bariatric surgery, but the role of the pathologist, remember, it is for autopsy. Let us not write what are all the damages by it and so on and so forth. What are the various organ changes that can occur? And this is it. The pathologist knows everything, but always a day too late. Ludwig, in his autopsy book. In fact, the complete quote of it will be, the surgeon knows nothing, but does everything. The physician knows something, does something. The psychiatrist keeps looking at the patient, so also a dermatologist. But then a pathologist knows everything, but always a day too late. These are his quotes in his book on autopsy. I don't know why I wrote this. I cannot build a reputation on what I am going to do. I should be doing something. I hope I'm doing something useful for the student community. And this is a great person. The pursuit of happiness is driving me to despair. Pick, pick. It is a saying by Mark Twain, actually. And this is one wonderful movie. If you people have got time amidst all your work, you people can go and see this. It is a story of a person who, from literally being a beggar, along with his son, moves to the greatest of heights in the United States. Pursuit of Happiness. That's a movie. It's worth seeing. It leaves a lot of confidence in us. I hope you people find the language and convey the meaning to me. Looking for your feedback. Thank you.